The Ottoman Empire is a sort of boogeyman term in most of history, and especially European history, and the fact that they were so feared, and a lot of empires feared them as an existential threat to their actual independence. And while this may be true in some cases and not true in others, why were they actually so feared in the first place? Well, the Ottomans first rose to power through Osman I, who was the first leader of the to-be Ottoman state in around 1300. However, their early rise to power is not entirely known. But however, we do know that following rapid successes against the Byzantines, including some of their major armies, the Ottomans expanded into Anatolia and then into the Balkans in the late 1300s, while the Byzantines still held on to Constantinople. However, these are just some of the major factors I want to highlight of nearer to their peak why they're so feared other than just the rapid expansion. Mehmed I first conquered Constantinople in 1453, which would end the Byzantine Empire and also establish a more direct link from Anatolia to the Balkans and vice versa. This meant that they had a lot more direct control, could move armies across, and had more logistics in regard, and this was a much more connected part of their empire. This means, like I said, they had a lot more control. Other systems, such as general religious tolerance and janissaries, would further consolidate their dominance. What I mean this is their general religious tolerance. They had different taxes on different religious groups. They viewed Jews and Christians as being necessarily misguided because they believed in a similar idea as they're all Abrahamic, but they didn't believe in the right. They didn't believe it in the right way. However, even if they didn't convert, they had lower taxes than actual Muslims within the Ottoman Empire, so it was very lenient, which meant that there was less of a chance for these majority Christian areas in the Balkans to rise up. Furthermore, janissaries were also a more direct form of control and consolidating power, as these were children taken from Christian homes and families as more of a bargaining chip and a hostage, where these janissaries would eventually join the Ottoman Empire in their higher ranks in their own sort of special army. And even though the system would backfire a lot in history, as the janissaries had so much military power, they could do a lot of actions on their own and force the Ottomans to give in. This was a very direct way and very effective way for them to essentially control much of the Balkan and Christian regions, which further exemplified the threat that the Ottomans had to Europe. Further conquests into Central Europe, Hungary, Ukraine, and others put Christendom at more of a direct threat as well. Especially into Hungary and Ukraine, put empires like Russia, or the general region of Russia, Ukraine, and especially Austria at threat with the Siege of Vienna in 1683, which means that it was not just it was not simply an empire that was able to consolidate their gains, but instead an empire that consolidated them and was able to bolster off of those gains and move further into Europe and not stop at just the outskirts of Europe in the Balkans. There's other very clear reasons, such as their strong military power, which is part of the janissaries, and then also their religious difference was very obvious as well, as there are many crusades simply against the religion of Islam in the first place, and the Ottomans being an Islamic state, obviously basically an extension of that. But other than those, these were essentially some of the main reasons I want to highlight specifically over why the Ottomans were just so feared in Europe, especially the time period, and why they're still basically infamous for the effect they had on Europe in this regard. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new, and I guess I'll see you in my next video.